Leafs and Panthers game 3 down in Sunrise. Can the Buds build off their 2-game series lead on the road? Let's break it all down on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. We've got game 3 going down tonight between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. And with this one shifting down to Florida, the Panthers are heavy favorites in this game, Dave, and they're definitely the more desperate team heading into it, down 2-0 in this series. I'm excited, buddy. How do you think the Leafs will fare in a game like tonight?
I think, you know what, like you look at the Ottawa series, that was a pretty hostile environment. I expect the same for Florida going down. I don't know how many Leaf fans are going to be making the trip down. It wasn't, I mean, for playoffs.
Snowbirds. You got Snowbirds already down there.
That's true. But I mean, hey, Florida, if a weekend in Florida, somebody asked me if I was going to go. I said, if only I could be so lucky.
Right.
But I am excited just because I feel like the Leafs have not allowed the pressure to really get to them, especially when it's a hostile environment. Ottawa, first game, didn't phase them, right? They went and they picked up the win in that one. I think, yes, Florida has played really well at home. They've really thrived off of that home crowd. But, you know, the Leafs also did pick up a win in Florida the last time these two teams played in the playoffs. So I do think that, yeah, it's the matchup will get a little tougher for Toronto because Florida can now really dictate certain matchups. But, you know, the Leafs have found a way to keep these things close. And I expect this to be another close game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely going to see a close game. It's going to be close all throughout, I would have to imagine, at this point in where we're at in the playoffs. But you look at the difference between, you know, the Florida Panthers from the road and at home, like it's just a completely different team. And that's why I think Toronto needs to make sure that they are prepared. Like this is a Florida team that won a lot of games on home ice this year in comparison to when they were on the road, right? It's like their road record was sub 500. Their home record was terrific. So logistically, I think Toronto's going to have to be far more prepared for what the Panthers are going to throw to them tonight. But I mean, Toronto's done pretty well. Like I know some people think that we've been clowning on the team and we've been too hard on them. You know, yes, they've won both of these games so far in the series, and you know they've had to earn their luck in a way, but they have to continue to play hard, right? They can't just rely on luck the entire way. Is all we're saying. They have to start playing and winning some of the battles, and you know limit Florida's scoring chances. Like they gave up 38 chances in the game the other night against Toronto, literally doubled them. They've been outshot, outchanced, but they haven't been outscored. So the goaltending has been quite solid so far for Toronto. And it sounds as though it's going to be Joseph Woll again. What's the update there on Anthony Stolarz?
Yeah, it was pretty doubtful that we're going to see Stolarz make the trip, at least for game 3. Berube didn't quite rule him out for game 4. There's an opportunity maybe that he is able to get down there, but I don't know if I don't think they want to risk a flight for Stolarz if he's not fully healthy, right? So it looks like pretty much you're going to expect Joseph Woll for game 2. For game 3. Game 4, we'll see if Stolarz makes the trip, but if I think it's rather unlikely we are going to see him for these next 2 games.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Like if he's not even going to make the trip out there with the team today, or today, I suppose, or yesterday, then like there's probably no chance that he's going to plan one of these 2 games. Maybe if he's feeling up for it, you know, he'll be able to get in there and play with the team come game 5, 6, or perhaps Woll has a chance to steal the net. Is that a possibility, you think? Like, did Stolarz play well enough where no matter what, when he's healthy, he'll get the net back? Or do you think that there's an opportunity here for Joseph Woll to kind of take back what was supposed to be his at the beginning of the year?
I think there's always an opportunity. It reminds me a little bit of when Matt Murray took over for the Penguins, right? Back, what was that, 2015, 2016, one of those 2 years,
Yeah.
right?
Both 15, 16, and 16, 17.
Yeah. So I think that's an opportunity there where, you know what, you got to go with the guy who's got the hot hand. Stolarz was amazing to start that series against Ottawa. 1, 2, 3. Games 1, 2, 3. I thought, there was no way you were gonna have that conversation. Then it was a little bit. Things kind of normalized with Allmark playing better, but a little more pressure on him to have to go toe to toe. Now, Bobrovsky hasn't exactly been stellar, so I think the pressure right now is more so on the Panthers goaltender to really bring it. So I think Woll has done well. I still think he's got there's clean looks that he's been beat on. I want to see him get back to now. I'm not expecting him to get back to the level he was the last couple of years in the playoffs, but I think he has that opportunity to, you get into a very risky situation where this is more of an injury thing. But if Woll's playing lights out, I don't see a reason to move on, right? Like right now, Edmonton now, it's a little different. Pickard took the net because Skinner was absolutely dreadful. But there's no doubt right now who's taking that net in Edmonton. It's Calvin Pickard, former Leaf.
Yeah.
For right
Marley, mainly.
Mainly, yeah. AHL goalie, now the starter for Edmonton. Unreal. But I think when it comes to Joseph Woll, we know what he is capable of. I think it's just a matter of he's got to build each game, and then but part of me wonders if we've always had Berube's always kind of thrown his weight towards Stolarz. I think that veteran presence that he has, I think the coach prefers that over Woll. But again, we don't know where things are with Stolarz. We didn't really get an update of what's exactly. They're not really gonna say what's wrong, and I don't expect it. But from what I'm seeing, him not even being on the ice would lead me to believe that we're not going to see him for a bit.
Yeah, probably not. Like, he's gonna have to get a couple practices under his belt before he gets out there for a couple of games. I'm with you. But yeah, Joseph Woll, if you take a look so far through the second round, and granted, very small sample size, but this is what we're dealing with right now with Joseph Woll against the Florida Panthers in the 2 games that he's played. So a game and a half, basically. He is second in the league in expected goals against. So 3.59 expected goals against per 60 minutes of play. And he's allowed less than that, right? He's only allowed, so it's a -6.2 goals saved above average per 60 minutes of play. So Joseph Woll's played well enough for this team. They could play a little better in front of him, I think, pretty much. Don't allow the second most expected goals against like they have for the first 2 games here. Only Logan Thompson has faced a little bit more through a couple games. And Joseph Woll, hopefully the team in front of him can play just a little bit better. Maybe not even play better, but just spend more time on the offensive end.
Yeah.
Spent way too much time in the D zone over the course of the first 2 games here against Florida. And really over the course of a good portion of this playoff, like even against Ottawa, they spent some time in the defensive zone. So that's one thing that I think the Maple Leafs for sure should want to try and do a little bit more, is spend some time in the defensive zone a little more. I'm pretty sure. I'm just going to take a look and see. Yeah, right now, I guess it's kind of tough to see, but I hate the NHL Edge website, by the way, because it doesn't allow you to actually take a look at the entire list. It just shows you the top 10, right?
Yeah.
So I want to take a look at what I was trying to do was take a look at the defensive zone and how much time is spent in the D zone for each team. And they're not in the top 10, but I don't know where they are in retrospect to the top 16 is the problem. That being said, The Senators are in the top 10, as are the Florida Panthers. So you could probably discern that as to the Maple Leafs spend a lot of time in the D zone because they're not even in the top 10 in offensive either. So there's another little, stat pack, I guess, to throw at you. I can't tell you exactly where they're ranked or how much time is spent in the defensive zone, but it's well over 40% because the Montreal Canadiens and LA Kings are tied in 10th at 40%. So they're spending more than 40% in the defensive zone in these playoffs. And, well, it's a lot more difficult for your goaltenders when that's happening. So to me, like, you're thinking about what the Maple Leafs need to do better. Again, they're winning games. It's not that they're playing poorly, but I think it would alleviate some of the stress on Joseph Woll and the goaltending if they could just spend more time in the offensive zone than defensive zone. Luckily, the guy on the other side. Go ahead.
I do have a couple stats here. This was just after game 2. The Florida Panthers spent puck and O-zone time 28:40. The Leafs 18:37. O-zone possession time 7:35 for the Panthers, 4:39 for the Leafs. And I mean, I could throw high danger scoring chances 21 for the Panthers, Leafs 12. Like, scoring chances off the cycle 11 for the Panthers, 5 for the Leafs. Like, here's the thing: the Leafs definitely doing enough to win because they are winning these games. But the Leafs have been spending way too much time in their own zone. Eventually, and this, again, maybe this is similar to what the Leafs were doing in the past, where they had all the O-zone time and they weren't able to get the puck in the net. Like, it could be a bit of that, but I do think that with the way that the Panthers probably are like, if we just keep getting opportunities, eventually they're going to go in.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. You look at this as a positive. Like, everyone wants to look at it as a negative, and I'm not necessarily looking at that as a negative. Like, oh my God, Toronto stinks. Look how much time they're having. They've won 2 games despite this. They change that a little more, and they spend a little more in the offensive zone. They get a little bit more offensive opportunities, and lessen the load on Joseph Woll. All of a sudden, you go from, oh wow, I can't believe the Leafs escaped with a win, to Leafs dominated tonight, and all of a sudden you're going from, okay, they're lucky to be up 2-0 to, wow, they dominated tonight, took a 3-0 stranglehold lead on the series, and they've completely taken, Panthers behind the woodshed, and maybe they can get it done in game 4. Maybe they've completely taken the will out of that team, now down 3-0, similarly to what they did to the Ottawa Senators. It could turn out that way, but they have to have a strong performance tonight, I think, for that to be the narrative. Because if they lose, the narrative is going to be, see, the first couple games, they weren't playing that well. They lucked out, and then finally, the Panthers got home. The bounces went their way. The power play dried up. Like, we've seen that before. It happened in game 4 against Ottawa, right? But they win tonight convincingly. It doesn't really matter. So that's what I'm hoping for tonight. All right, on the other side, one thing that Florida has to be concerned about is the play of Sergei Bobrovsky, because that's ultimately the biggest reason why the Maple Leafs are up 2-0. This guy can't stop a beach ball right now. I've got some concerning stats to bring up about what he's been doing here throughout this series. So that's coming up, and some more league-wide NHL news, a little check-in to the rest of the NHL, and there's a new coaching hire, a very interesting coaching hire around the NHL. So we'll get to all that and more next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your pair of controllers, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty to NHL 25, and as easily as you stream your favorite TV shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's on all of your Fire TV objects. With Wi-Fi 6 and 6E and auto low latency mode, advanced technology, Fire TV Stick delivers smooth, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds that you need to stay competitive. You can play high quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of your console. Already have a console, a Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take your games wherever you go. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NHL playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before face-off and before the face-off starts with live player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the big moments? How could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? What would it look like to combine live prop bets in mid-game based on how the action unfolds? Well, head over to FanDuel.com. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NHL and Locked On Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, David Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. The podcast is free and available wherever you get your podcasts at, also up on YouTube as well. Thank you to you everydayers that have been along the ride all season long with us, and to you new people who've stopped in throughout the playoffs, this playoff run here. Thank you so much for enjoying the content. We do appreciate it, and stick with us. We go all the way through the playoffs, and even when they get eliminated, if they get eliminated, hopefully they win a Stanley Cup, and it's a long run, but we do go 365 days a year. It's a full season long podcast and off season. So stick with us, be locked into the Maple Leafs with the Locked On Leafs podcast. Toronto headed down to Florida tonight for Game 3 against the Panthers. An opportunity to really take a stranglehold of this series and do what a lot of people did not think was going to happen a week ago. But Dave, the Leafs, 11-0 all time when taking a 2-0 series lead on home ice. And they did just that through the first couple of games. If they could go up 3-0 in this series, boy, oh boy, will they ever have themselves in quite the prime position to win a second round in one season for the first time in over 20 years.
We were talking about this. Like, if the Leafs are in a position to clinch, we're ready to go live, because it'll be the most wins. I mean, we joked a bit on the Discord, like this is the most wins some of us have seen in like a decade, right?
A decade? In two decades. It's been since 2004.
All right,
21 years.
2 decades.
2 decades, yes.
Like it's a long time coming. So it's incredible. Just, we've had a lot of shows where you and I, a lot of years, were like, if they can just go on a run, we'd be so happy, because we hate the early off-season talk. We are very much happy that all these other pods right now on the Locked On NHL network have to do these postseason, what comes next for their team. I don't want to do that.
Locked On Sens not having as much fun as us, right? Locked On Red Wings, Locked On Sabres, Locked On Montreal Canadiens. They're not having as much fun as we are here in the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's because the Buds are still playing. They're still vying for a Stanley Cup, and they find themselves up 2-0 in the second round. And they won more games in a playoff than they have in 20 years. So, yeah, things are looking pretty good, feeling pretty good if you're a Leaf fan. And the one reason why I think the Leafs are in this position, or the biggest reason why I would say, is because Sergei Bobrovsky has not looked like his playoff self, like his Vezina self, like he has in the past. Like, obviously, Sergei Bobrovsky, we saw what he did in the postseason a couple of years ago. He had like a .943 save percentage, a 183 goals against average against Toronto a couple of years back, and they eliminated Toronto in 5 games. That has not been the case here for Bobrovsky. So far in these playoffs, he's got an .876 save percentage and a .290 goals against average. And those numbers balloon when you look at the last 2 games here. You're looking at the series against Toronto. He's got a .820 save percentage and a 4.5 goals against average. Not what you expect from Sergei Bobrovsky. He's given up 9 goals through 2 games, and it's 4.17 goals allowed above expectation. And that is, to me, the biggest difference and the biggest reason for why the Maple Leafs are up on the Florida Panthers right now. Officer Bob has not been himself. And if he doesn't find himself tonight, I think the Panthers are cooked.
I think so too. And like we talked about, and I talked to some people about this. It's just like this reminds me a lot about what happened in the last series with Ottawa. Allmark stunk in games 1 and 2. He was terrible, right?
Yeah.
And the Leafs had even like, okay, maybe Woll wasn't as good as what we saw from Stars in games 1 and 2 in the last series, but he has been way better than what the Panthers are getting from Bobrovsky. And this is why, like, I'm glad, like, this, you have to take advantage. If there's a weakness, you exploit it. And I'll give the Leafs credit. They're doing a lot better job of going at Bobrovsky, more so than I think that I saw in the last time these two teams played against each other, because there's a thing where you can be too easy on a goalie. You can make things too easy on a goalie. I feel like at times Leafs have done that with goaltenders. Like, look at game 2. Matthew Nyes getting right in Bobrovsky's kitchen. Tavares getting right into Bobrovsky. Like, when a goalie is struggling, there's nothing better than seeing a team really go at him and see the frustration on him. And he was giving it to the refs. Hey, these guys are in my kitchen. The refs like, well, they're not really. They're doing what your team does against goaltenders. Like, if we're gonna call it one way, then we're gonna have to start calling it the other way too. So, I think the best thing for the Leafs is getting into game 3. You got to make Bobrovsky that much more frustrated. Make him doubt himself even more. Like, there are some saves he was trying to make in game 2 where it looked very awkward for him. He's not feeling comfortable in the net. And you got to make sure that does not change.
And that's like without Toronto really peppering him. Like, they haven't put a whole lot of pressure on Bobrovsky. Like, is that 40 shots like through 2 games? Like, it's not as though he's been facing a whole plethora of shots here. So that's also kind of what's, I wouldn't say concerning, but it's certainly, if you're looking at from a Florida perspective, you're like, okay, what is going on here with Bobrovsky? He's faced 50 shots through 2 games. He's only stopped 41 of them. Yeah, so an .820 save percentage of .470 goals against average. It's not looking good right now. And if Toronto turns the Jets on and they kind of turn it up tonight, it could get worse if he doesn't find himself. So, that's what the Maple Leafs, like, you think about what a key is going to be. Try and get on him early. Get on him often. Traffic to the net. Get bodies. Get those rebound opportunities, right? Guys like Pacioretty, guys like Nyes, guys like Tavares, get those guys heavy into guys like a Scott Laughton, a Steven Lorentz. Get those guys in his kitchen and try and bang away at some rebounds and score some goals. But to do that, you had the puck in the offensive end, which they have not done a whole lot of. But maybe tonight they can try and change the fortunes. Clearly, we'll see how good of a coach Greg Berube is, because now it's time for Paul Maurice to have last change. How can Berube make sure that he gets the line matches that he wants, being the road coach, to try and make sure that he can still exploit the Panthers and find a weakness and find a way to get some more opportunities in the offensive zone that they were unable to get in the first couple of games here. So that's one. I have one other thing that I want to bring up here, Dave. Did you happen to see Brad Marchand's comments after game 2?
No, I did not. Did I miss some golden Marchand?
Not necessarily. No, not like some traditional, Marchand throwing jabs. I think he actually had like a respectful comment towards the Leafs, and rightfully so. I mean, they're down 2-0. You can't sit there and really throw jabs at a team that's beat you twice in a row in the playoffs and kind of have you on the ropes. But someone did ask him, like, if he feels as though this Leafs team is presenting a different challenge than the Leafs iterations of before. And there's no better player to answer that question than Brad Marchand. So I'm glad someone did ask him that, and his answer was pretty profound, and I think actually spoke volumes to what this team has become and what their identity has become, and what Brad Treliving was trying to build a roster and build an identity, and Craig Berube part of that to implement that identity, and it's all really coming together quite nicely. And this is what Marchand had to say. He said, quote, "They continue to get better and grow, and they brought in good pieces to address their back end, and it's very heavy and big, and their structure is very good, and they don't give up a whole lot around their net." And then he also went on to talk about how they're a really good team off the rush. They got to stay above them. It doesn't take much for those guys to score. So that's what he had to say. So not only is he impressed with the Maple Leafs blue line and their ability to kind of keep the Panthers out of those dirty areas, out of those high danger areas for the most part. He also, clearly is crediting the fact that this team has been able to strike, off the counterattack and off the rush. And it's also something that they're going to have to try and stop Toronto from doing, clearly, in Game 3. So Brad Marchand, who many times has beaten the Toronto Maple Leafs in a playoff series, he's on the wrong side of it right now, and he's noticing himself that there's a difference in this year's Toronto Maple Leafs compared to the Leafs of before. And I don't know about you, Dave, that kind of makes it feel good to hear that.
Oh, it's music to the ears when you hear Brad Marsh. Now, look, we have heard teams kind of try to butter up the competition.
Yeah, but this didn't feel like lip service because it's
probably
but that's what's happening. Like that's what's happening, right? He's telling you exactly what's going on. We know that this team addressed their back end. We know that they addressed the lack of size and intensity, and they know that what they want to do on the defensive end is block shots and keep guys out of the in front of the net. Like that's what this team wants to do, and he's just saying, yeah, they're doing that. They're accomplishing their goals, and clearly that's a big reason why the Maple Leafs have won 6 games in the playoffs and only lost 2.
Yeah, and that's it, right? They've stuck with their identity when things aren't going right. Now, I'd say the biggest blemish was that game 5 against Ottawa. Other than that, even the game that the other game that they lost, it was a close game, right? And that's a break Craig Berube team to a T. You look at that Blues team from 2019, they didn't always dominate, but they kept it close. And they outworked. They put in the work. I think that's probably the biggest difference. And some of the people I talk to, they what do you feel is different with this team? They're like, they work hard. Like and the blue line obviously is the big thing I always hear about. But you've seen the identity of this team that, if they're gonna have to, if Florida's gonna want to spend a lot of time in the Leafs end, they're gonna have to earn those shots on net. The Leafs are going to get in those lanes and block those opportunities. Tanev, how many times has he, made those goal line saving plays? Like just calm, cool under pressure. You don't see the Leafs panic either. And that's probably the most enlightening thing too, is that the moment doesn't seem too big for them. We might be nervous in a close game, but I don't see that on this team. When the Senators tied the game, go back to the Senators series, Game 6. They tie it up. Berube said everyone on the bench is like, let's go get the next one. Right? Yeah. They didn't go, oh, here we go again. It wasn't any of that. They weren't feeling sorry for themselves.
Or the 3-3 goal in Game 2.
Yeah.
They went out and scored 17 seconds later. Marner scores,
Game 1, the Panthers, they were up 2-1. The Panthers score. What did the Leafs do? They right back at it and scored on them.
Yep.
And that's just a business-like approach that you need, right? You need to have that. You need to have a short memory. You can't dwell on things in the playoffs, and the Leafs are not doing that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Maple Leafs currently Tanev, Benoit, and Riley all ranking the top 6 in shots blocked. Tanev with 23, Benoit with 22, Riley with 20. So all three of those guys ranking in the top 6 among the entire league. That's a big reason for why this team finds themselves in the position that they're in. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk about what else is going on around the league, a new coaching hire, and what else has gone on in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's all coming up next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast.
Today's show is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored job posts. Put your posts up at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates fast. You don't want to be in a spot where you need to hire somebody and every day you don't have that person. It is a setback for your company. That's exactly when Indeed's sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you. It is Game 3 of the Leafs and Panthers tonight. Toronto looking to take a 3-0 lead on the Florida Panthers, but obviously Florida hoping to cut Toronto's lead in half. And they do say, the old adage goes, you're not out of it until you lose one on home ice. So Florida not out of it yet, but with a loss tonight, Toronto definitely would take a big time stranglehold here. What else is going on around the NHL? We've got 3 other series underway. We saw Mikko Rantanen absolutely come through again for the Dallas Stars last night and defeat the Winnipeg Jets, I guess 2 nights ago, and defeat the Winnipeg Jets. A second hat trick in a row for Mikko Rantanen. And I like the fact that this guy got traded twice to me is just astounding, considering how good he is, the style of player he is, and how conducive he is to translating into playoff success. And it's not as though we don't know he's a successful playoff performer. The stats have been there. The guy's been unreal for the last 6 years in Colorado in their playoff runs. And now here he is getting it done for the Dallas Stars once again to put them up 1-0 on Winnipeg.
Yeah, like Dallas has had good players, but there's a reason why they made a point to go get Mikko Rantanen and sign him to that deal. They knew that they needed a player of his caliber to really push them over the top. And they're doing this without Miro Heiskanen. Like, that's the other crazy part. Like, they don't have their best.
And Jason Robertson. Robertson's been out too.
Did he come back?
I think he came back, but he missed a couple of games there.
They beat the Colorado Avalanche without their number one. Well, let's say number 2 for because Rantanen, I think, has now overtaken that.
Yeah.
And their number 1 defenseman. And they won that series. So it's
crazy.
Dallas is a team that watch out because they got they've always been a good team. We'll see. Winnipeg is in tough. They got to respond in Game 2, but it's these games are going to be.
What's concerning is that game was in Winnipeg,
and it was a winnable game for Winnipeg too.
It's just, Winnipeg, the way that Connor Hellebuyck is playing on the road, they can't afford to give away games at home. That's what I mean by that.
True.
So they give up a game at home, and now all of a sudden you have to win a game in Dallas because there's 3 games still to be played in Dallas, at least, or a minimum of 3 games to be played in Dallas at this point if they want to win. And got to win one or else they're going home early. So that's why that was, really, really big for Dallas to go out and take Game 1 and, kind of take away home ice advantage for the Winnipeg Jets. Elsewhere in the league, we got Vegas Edmonton going on right now as we're recording. Edmonton up 4-3 on the Golden Knights. They do lead 1-0 already, so they're looking to take a 2-0 series lead, and that would be significant because again, they're doing this in Vegas. Like right now, they're playing in Vegas's home, and if they can go up 2-0 on the road, then have to go back to Edmonton up 2-0, man, would things be looking good? And God, it's so funny. They looked dead in the water at one point against the LA Kings and somehow got their mojo and are just cooking with oil right now.
Yeah, I blame Jim Miller with that stupid challenge that just gave Edmonton life. They have him. And what's crazy, this series against Vegas, they're doing this without McDavid and Draisaitl leading the charge. Like you look at who's
well, I
scoring.
mean, we're two games in, but yeah,
True.
like tonight, they haven't done anything tonight.
Right.
Yeah, Wallman, Podkolzin, Nurse, Evander Kane. Getting Evander Kane back is big. I will say that. Him coming back into that series was big for them. Give them that secondary scoring, someone in the middle six who can kind of provide some offense and push the pace. That was definitely a big ad for them. But yeah, eventually those guys are going to wake up. And if they're up 2-0 without those guys waking up, they're going to get home. They will have last change. They can, line match to get away from Vegas's shutdown line and shutdown pairing, and then those two should be able to feast. So again, this game very important for Vegas to try and claw back into it and make sure Edmonton doesn't win this one because you can't afford to go back to Edmonton down 2-0 in that series. And the other series going down in the Eastern Conference, Washington, Carolina, both tied at 1 game apiece. Washington defeating the Carolina Hurricanes last night 3-1. They beat the Hurricanes, and what was it? McMichael and Gostisbehere scored for the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't know if you saw that shot. Holy, what a howitzer that one was. But John Carlson's goal in the power play was the game winner. And, of course, Tom Wilson gets on the score sheet with an empty net goal himself. So Washington won that one 3-1, and it's now tied 1-1. Which of those two teams would scare you more? Like if Toronto goes through Florida and they get to the Eastern Conference Final, who would you not rather face, I guess? Who would you rather stay away from, Washington or Carolina?
Probably Washington. I think
really?
they got.
I feel
like Carolina. They're a team that puts in a lot of. Like we know what the Hurricanes are all about, but would you rather play Frederick Anderson or Logan Thompson?
That's a good point. That is a good point. But you're probably not going to play Freddie because he'll get hurt.
Yeah,
you're going to play Pyotr Kochetkov. He's also a very good goaltender.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear you.
And I also just feel like the Capitals blue line. I like,
but Rod Brindamore or Spencer Carberry?
I mean, Spencer Carberry knows this team quite well. He knows these Leafs quite well. So I mean, and like,
yeah, you're right.
I just think I like Carolina's playing well. I do get it, but I think the Leafs, their talent hopefully can like if they get the goaltending to the Leafs, I think the Leafs have the better goaltending in that potential matchup. But yeah, being very interesting to see how that one plays out.
How do you think it plays out? You like Washington or Carolina in this series?
I have Carolina. Just they've looked pretty good. Like Washington, I don't know what it is. They haven't looked exciting in a bit. There's just such a high with the whole the Ovechkin stuff, and it feels like they've kind of been on a bit of a. They've cooled off after that really brilliant start to the year, and maybe there was a bit of that. But yeah, they're still a good team.
Oh, do you remember who Toronto faced last time they were in an Eastern Conference Final?
I do remember it was Carolina. I remember Artis Urbe. I would love a little bit of revenge.
Little black-eyed Jeff O'Neill, if you will. If you recall that.
I remember.
Yeah, so maybe Toronto could get their revenge. Would be 24 years later, 23 years later on Carolina and Rod Brindamore, who was also on that team at the time. Perhaps. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Nope.
There's still 2 more games to win here against Florida, before we get there. But yeah, that's where things stand around the league. Dallas up 1-0 in their series. Edmonton on the verge going up 2-0 as of the recording. They're up 1-0 in the series, up 4-3 in that game late in the third. Toronto up 2-0 over Florida, and Washington, Carolina tied at ones through 2 games there. We don't have much time to dive into this, but bit of a controversial hire made out in Anaheim today. It sounds like the Anaheim, well, it doesn't sound like it's happened. The Anaheim Ducks have signed Joel Quenneville to be their head coach. So Joel Quenneville, who, was obviously let go by the Florida Panthers a couple of years back due to his involvement, or at least knowledge, of the Kyle Beach situation with the Chicago Blackhawks in that whole scenario. And he was he was suspended. He was on the no-no list for a couple of years and was unable to coach in the NHL. He was reinstated over this past summer. No one decided to give him a chance this year, but it sounds like the Anaheim Ducks are ready to welcome Joel Quenneville back behind an NHL bench. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. But that is kind of the big news of the day when it comes to teams outside of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll get a little bit more into what's going on with Team Canada over the weekend and on Monday's show, because, man, is this ever looking like a stacked lineup? So we'll get to that on Monday, and 2 games to react to on Monday as well. Game 3 and Game 4. Game 3 tonight, 7 o'clock in Florida, and 7 o'clock on Game 4 Sunday in Florida as well. So we'll be back on Monday to dive into those. Hopefully the Maple Leafs can win one of them and take a 3-1 series lead, possibly a 4-0 series lead home to Toronto. By the way, we should mention, if the Leafs do sweep and they do get it done on Sunday, we will go live post-game. Live show, post-game, post-cast, right here on the Locked On Leafs podcast on the YouTube channel. So just so you know, if the Leafs do sweep and they win it in 4 games, Dave and I, right here, live, 10 p.m., maybe 10:30, we'll send out a tweet. I'll let you know the exact time, but be prepared for that if it happens. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. Like to thank you for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at _Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Monday. Enjoy the games this weekend, folks. Go Leafs, go. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.